All right, as we get closer to fall, the order of the day is to get the greenhouse ready, and it is a hot mess. Not only is it hot, but it's also a mess. Doing it a little bit early, but I'm doing it because, you know, my grandmother once told me that she would send me letters and she'd always sign it ta. Never knew what that meant, and then finally asked her and she said, take advantage. So that's what I'm doing right now. Is we've got a cloudy day right now. It's been in the high 90s and it's actually starting to rain a little bit. So I'm gonna take advantage of this cool weather, and get this thing set up, get this shade cloth on here so I can start cooling it and monitoring the temperatures in here to see when they're gonna equalize enough for me to start planting. So in this greenhouse, I'll show you. I have these tracks here. And what I do is I take the shade cloth and then I put these hooks in and you just lock them in. And then that'll pin it up. And that's gonna lower the temperature in here dramatically. Talking about a temperature change of almost 20 degrees during the day. It lowers it that much. I'm going to work on possibly getting some wind flow in here, some movement of air. But if I can't do that, then this is what I'm gonna just kind of work with. So I'm gonna put this up and I'm gonna show you why I put it up the way I do, because it's not totally symmetrical. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do it by yourself. But to be honest, it'd be a pain in the butt to do it with somebody else in here because it's so tight. Because this isn't a huge greenhouse, it's only 8 feet long and 6 feet wide. Yeah, 6 feet wide. So that's 6 feet. It is, like I said, I used these hooks to pin it in place. And then I just put 2 in each side. And what this does is it lets in, I think it's 70% of the light. So 70% of the light won't come in, which does make it a little bit harder to grow, but it cools it significantly. So let's talk about the heating of the greenhouse. What am I gonna do? So I'm gonna do a multi-step approach this year. I'm definitely gonna do the passive radiant heat. So what I did last year is I had this bucket here and then I had another one on top of it, so I moved one over here and I'm going to put one on each one. And so I'm going to paint them black, and then what that's going to do is it's going to absorb the heat in the middle of the day and then it's going to radiate it out at night. So before, I noticed that everything on this side where the 2 buckets were, see if I can get you in there, 2 buckets were, everything around it was growing better. But over here it would stay colder, and then it would, you know, it wouldn't grow as strong. So I'm gonna try and eliminate that. And then what that also does is it gives me another platform to put like a potted plant on or something like that. So that's gonna give me a little bit of a upper hand when it comes to the really cold, because this greenhouse is a greenhouse by label, but honestly, it's nothing more than a cold frame without some modifications. So you gotta take that into account. Now I've got about a month of really hot weather left, so it's a little early for me to be getting this greenhouse really ready. But what I can do is I can go through and I can weed it really good, and then I'm going to put down a thick layer of mulch. And so what that'll do is that'll help suppress the weeds, but it'll also help retain moisture, because I got to get out of here. Hold on, it's hot. The whole situation in the greenhouse is like when it gets too hot, I stop watering it, I stop doing anything in there because it's just too hot to get in there and really work with it. So what that means is I'm gonna get this mulch in here and then I'm gonna start watering it heavy, and then I'm gonna pull the mulch back and then probably I'm gonna add 3 to 4 bags of compost. And I'm not going to use my own compost because I have a whole lot that I need in other sections of my garden, and this is very easily controlled, so it makes sense to use bag compost. And then I'm going to add something that I've been putting in ever since I got this, and I'm going to add 2 bags of a soil conditioner. And I actually have this in my shed. I'll show you what it is. I use it for to make bonsai soil as well, but it works really well for this. This is soil conditioner, and it's just chopped pine bark and a little bit of peat moss, just really fine. And so I'll put that in there, and that'll help to revitalize that soil. Honestly, another reason why I use it is because I really like the smell. Like when I walk in there after a summer of it being like cooking and really hot, and I walk in there, it smells good and it reminds me of fall. You know, it reminds me that it's a fresh beginning in my garden, and that's really what I want. Man, my son came out like 10 times and he's like, Daddy, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? Like, of course you can. Man, kids are a blessing, a true blessing, but man, they test your patience every time. On a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the worst, let us know in the comments how much you hate to weed. Because my wife, believe it or not, she actually likes weeding, but she won't come in the greenhouse and weed for me. I don't get it. So I'm over here on the side that has been mulched, so it's not as bad. But I'm just taking and I'm literally moving all of the soil. My plan for this was to be like my garden and be no dig, or let me not say no dig, minimal dig. But it's just, with these weeds and stuff that take over, it's just not gonna work. But I'm gonna do this once and for all. I'm almost done with this, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove all of this crap, and I'm going to come back and mulch. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start watering it, because right now the soil, my fear is that it's actually hydrophobic, meaning it won't accept water. And I thought that last year, but what I did is I started watering. I did it like a step-by-step approach, and I watered once a week for 30 minutes. And then as we got closer, you know, I'd do that for probably 2 weeks or so, and then I would do 2 times a week. And then I would end up watering like in the middle of the night, just let it go for an hour or so. And it actually did pretty good. And then once I mended the soil, it all came back. What I really like, right now it's raining and it sucks because the rain's not coming in here. And what I need to do is figure out how to remove the panels up top so the rain can come in, and that would help immensely. Hay time. Nice and thick layer. But yeah, I'm really glad, like, I put a little bit of mulch down. I'm glad I did it. And next year what I'll do is, when it's all done for the spring and I clean it out, I'm gonna mulch it heavy. I'm gonna mulch it real heavy and get it down, because it makes a big difference. And if I can just water it a couple times, it might make it a little bit better. But once I start watering it, I fully expect to see weeds coming in, and that's when I'm going to come in and I'm going to use vinegar. As long as I have a little bit of time before I plant, I'll be putting vinegar in. But I've been really taking my time and getting all of these weeds out. Look at all the weeds I pulled out of there. Isn't that crazy? So that's what it looks like right now. And we're gonna end up putting in the passive solar now. And you guessed it, the chickens will get the weeds from the greenhouse. My double latch system, because we have some brutal raccoons. Watch out, ladies. Y'all can act scared, but I know y'all like it. I'd say they like it. What do you guys think? Nothing better than a good old salad first thing in the morning. These ladies are what keep our garden going. So we want to take as best care for them. We give them all of our weeds or some of our scraps. And once they're done with this, I'll put some more hay in. But it's a huge help in our garden to get their manure and, of course, their eggs. Got to have the eggs. So it's just a big help. Thought I was going to use the buckets. I realized that I have these barrels out back and I don't really use them since I hooked up the watering system inside of my greenhouse. So I'm going to take 2 of these barrels, and right now I'm siphoning the water out, which was gross. But I also have these caps, and so the caps fit right on just fine. The only difference is where I did an overflow system from here to the next barrel, I'll have to patch this, and I'll just put a piece of plastic over it and some JB weld or something just to hold it in place. It doesn't have to be pretty, just has to lock that water in. It's all painted except for my little patch, and I did that with a piece of a plastic bucket that was basically rotten, and then I used JB Weld on it to hold it in place, and it's gonna have to cure for about a day before I can put the water in. But luckily I got enough time. And I'm gonna let these dry out here because honestly, I don't want my greenhouse to smell like spray paint. You know, something about it smells good, but at the same time, in an enclosed space that gets warm, wouldn't be so good. So I'm gonna let this sit out and cure for the day. It's supposed to rain, unfortunately. You can see it is getting cloudy. So worst case scenario, I'll throw them in my shed and let them dry and then fill them up.